What's up, guys? Here I am with a commentary of a match that I played versus my friend. He's on Rush Zoro and I'm on Doflamingo. So both of our turn ones were not ideal, no searchers. He's gonna hit me here for 5, and luckily I had a Spada, but my top 3 was not too desirable. The only Warlord on top was Gecko Moria with no cards in the discard, so in hindsight, maybe I should have just put it on the bottom. I did have a Doflamingo to set up next turn, but I was greedy and decided to put the Moria in this turn because I value having attackers against Zoro. And honestly, I think that's what makes Doflamingo such a powerful deck, is he can play these high-cost attackers that are able to clear board against red. But as you're going to see as this game progresses, that game plan did not pan out exactly the way I wanted it. So it was also a decent top 5 that maybe baited me into keeping because I had the law to follow up with the extra Dawn, which was nice. So you're going to see the true turning point. So he attacks more for 6, and I'm able to block with the 2k. One of my favorite plays is blocking 6k attacks with 2ks, and you'll see he had the Rush Zoro, so I do end up having to dispense 2 2Ks. My philosophy is basically I need Moira to be able to attack this Zoro on the fly, and the Sanji as well if he decides to keep it. So he activates Sanji here, attacks for 8, but I block with Law, and then he passes the turn. So this turn left me with almost no resources in hand, and since I know the top of my deck is not a Warlord guaranteed, or rather I haven't set up the top of my deck, it's definitely a little sketchy. So I draw for turn. He had the Nami, which is really rough. If his turn ended with just the attacks, it would have been a lot better. So counting my mana here, I get an attack with Dofi without activating. I'll later learn that if I had activated it, it would have gone through. So a little sad, but let's see what he does. He decides to let Zoro die. It would have cost him 2 cards. Now Moira at Sanji, again, would cost him 2 cards to save, so he just lets it die. And we're just going to follow up with the most Dawn efficient play, which is Boa Hancock. So now my game plan is to be okay with Moira dying because I have a backup attacker in Boa. Even though she's a blocker, she's still a great attacker, still 5k power. So you'll see I just let Moria die without really giving it a second thought. And then he just plays an aggressive Luffy for 5 and just a 7k swing. So I decided to take it. It would cost me 2 cards. So I want this Boa to be able to attack, so I just take the life. Alright, now on my turn, I have enough Dawn where I feel comfortable playing the Doflamingo, so that's how I start off. Try and get some value out of my leader. So I'm arranging it to put Boa into play, draw Mihawk, and then play Dofi off of my leader's effect next turn, which actually ends up being a tiny bit of a miscalculation because I'm going to end up attaching a Dawn to Boa here to draw a card, either when she attacks or blocks, which will throw off the order that I had set up, but it's not that big of a deal because I have a Doflamingo in hand and one on top of the deck to rearrange the deck, but definitely not ideal. So he defends his Luffy with guard point. Really unfortunate, I attacked it for 8 and he had 1 card that got it to 9. He is very high on guard point as a great offensive tool to protect the big hitters like Zoro and Luffy. Everyone likes to attack for 2 above whatever's printed, and guard point gets around that. So he's swinging 6 here at Boa. And I'm thinking whether or not to protect her or not. I also want to decide if I use this block now, because if he just attaches Dawn to Luffy and attacks, I'm not going to have the option to block, and then the Dawn I put on Boa is basically a wasted turn. So it's a 6k attack, and ultimately I do block, and then I guard her with the 2k counter, which is the Mihawk I just drew off of her. And then he goes into finish with Luffy, but he doesn't attach Dawn, so I block. But then he has the follow-up Zoro, which is an extremely Dawn efficient place, getting in a 6k attack at my 5 power Boa. I end up deciding to defend it. Virgo and Teach are just burning holes in my hand. I don't want to bounce any of these characters with Teach, and he just has another Zoro, so there's not really anything I can do. And now Nami's attacking. I decide I have to defend this Boa, because if I don't, I just have 1 to his 4 characters and no one to attack with. So here I'm looking for some help on the top, and I get a really good Warlord to reveal, which I think is Gecko Moria, if I'm not mistaken, which is like probably the best Warlord to put in when you're this behind, because he just represents a second card. So you see my last card in hand is Doflamingo, so right now the priority is just clearing the board, trying to do it as efficiently as possible. So I get the Dawn on Boas to make sure I draw. I'm attacking 7 at Zoro. I was too afraid to attack Luffy for 7, because just a 1-2k counter would save it, and then I'd be way too far behind. And I'm deciding between Mihawk and Law, but I ultimately go with Law, which is the whole reason I only attacked for 7 instead of for 8. And now I'm sending Boa at Zoro for 6. He decides to let it go. Now I'm putting a Law, and off of Boa's attack I drew a Love Beam, so that's where the other 2 Dawn is going to go. A great card to get me back in the game, since it draws a card and will save one of my guys or a life. But I'm definitely on the back foot this whole time. If you're keeping track, I believe he's drawn 3 of the Rush Zoros, which is extremely hard to play around, especially in the Zoro deck where they're attacking for 6 just because of his leader's effect, without any Dawn investment. A really brutal draw from them. So he's attacking with Luffy, can't be blocked. He's taking it back, actually. So he attacks Boa for just 6. I love Beam to protect and draw and save a blocker. Now I block with Law. And then, of course, he has another Rush Luffy. He's attacking Boa for 7. I could save her with Doflamingo because he didn't attach the Dawn. But the fact that he didn't attach the Dawn is pretty suspicious. Like, he might have another Rush creature or just another plan, which you'll see he had a plan all along. So I was losing those 2 creatures, those 2 characters either way, and then he attacks my Moria. So he completely clears my field. I have 1 card in hand, or 2 cards in hand. It was a Doflamingo. So it is not looking good. It's pretty close to impossible to come back against this. But we'll see what we can do. So I put all 5 on the bottom. There was only 1 Warlord and a bunch of cards that we don't want to see. So because of that, I shipped to the bottom and played my Perona to try and find a more decent top 5. And again, it's not good. It's Mihawk and Marshall D. Teach or Blackbeard are my only options. So ship them to the bottom again and go again. 1 more Doflamingo, so all the cards out of my hand. Luckily, I find a Moria, which is, again, like when you're on the back foot, Moria is the best card that you can get off of Doflamingo's effect, because him coming in tap still nets you a card. So since I have no Dawn available, I'm just going to get back, I believe, a Dracul Mihawk, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. So I get Mihawk, 2k counter, and pass the turn. The good thing is right now, or the way I still have a chance to win, is I still have a healthy life total, and this turn, now that I finally don't have a bunch of rested characters, he can't really clear my board. He can just attack Moria and hit me for life. So he attacks my life first, then attacks Moria. I can't block either of them, and I had only a Mihawk in hand, so we knew I wasn't blocking that. So I find a Pacifista from my life, which wasn't too bad because I saw Akuma on top that I was planning on putting in off of leader effect next turn. So he's getting in another swing here with Nami. I decide to block, and he's attacking with Zoro, and I believe I'm going to take this one. So at this point, I was just looking for cards to try and swing the tide of the game. He plays a Chopper, which is really devastating because I'd really like to clear out these Luffys, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. Get in the free attack with Perona onto Nami. It'd be silly of him to defend it, and Perona's not going to do much else, so may as well get that one in. So now I am attacking a Luffy. He guard points plus Otama's. Oh, I forgot to mention those cards are Otama's, the backward cards, because he doesn't have his own. I mentioned why didn't he just block with Chopper, but I guess since he could defend it anyway, may as well. So then I play 2 laws, pass. As you can see, I'm facing down 2 Luffys that can't be blocked, so it's not very pretty. But if his whole turn just ends up being, doing 2 damage to me with the Luffy's guaranteed, and then me getting to block the Zoro, I'll still have a chance if I can clear out the Luffy's on the next turn. So he starts with the Luffy attack that can be blocked, so I take full opportunity, and he does it again. I'm happy to just cash in these blockers while I'm allowed to use them. Now he's attacking Boa. So again, he was just going for a clear board strategy. I try and save Boa. She's more valuable than Doflamingo since she'll draw me a card on her block ore. So this is an attack with Chopper for 6. Very annoyingly, I would need a 2k counter in order to live it. So again, Boa's more valuable as a blocker than Doflamingo, so I do think I end up blocking with Dofi. Yep. And then he plays down a Robin. So he has no cards in hand, and he attacked with Chopper, so at least I can guarantee get rid of the 2 Luffys this turn. So I'm going to draw a card with Boa, which actually messes up my sequencing. I was supposed to attack with Dofi first because I wanted to put in the Pacifista for free. But it ends up not being too bad because right now I'm going to attack this Luffy for 6. I know he has no cards in hand, so... And then I'm just going to double play a Pacifista. Honestly, maybe a better play in hindsight, so sort of serendipitous. It's definitely not what I meant to do, but... And I'm sorry, these are Bartholomew Kumas, not Pacifistas. I have the Pacifista in hand also off trigger. It's more valuable as a counter right now, but I can't really afford to... I won't be winning this game if I'm not attacking, so I'm going to definitely still be looking for a spot to get the free play. So I took this hit from Zoro just to try and find a card. Now he's attacking with Robin. This time I will take the block, put the Pacifista in, and he puts a Sanji down and passes. So I remember this turn I was contemplating very hard if I should try and go for game. Let me see what my... Yeah, because I drew Doflamingo off of my life. So I could bounce the Chopper with 7 on my Dawn and then have 3 to work with for my other attacks, which if all of them connected would have been exactly enough. As you can see, I have my later plus 3 characters and they have 3 life. So 4 attacks would win if they all connected. And against red, it's fairly decent chance. If that Doflamingo was a teach instead of a Doflamingo, I definitely would have gone for it. They have no cards in hand, so it's pretty likely that at least one of those cards in their life has no counter, so I think it'd be easier to play around. But ultimately, I decided it's not worth trying to go for the end right away because... Basically, my chances are very slim. I'd have to attach a single Dawn to... After bouncing the Chopper, I'd have to attach a single Dawn to, like, Boa, a Pacifista, and maybe Doflamingo. So, like, 1 5k attack, 1 6k, 1 6k, and 1 7k. And if they drew even just 1 2k counter, I think that thwarts the plan because all of those had to connect. So I ended up not going for it. I played Dofi anyway. It's my best plan of attack for... getting back into this game, get Chopper out of the way so that I can guaranteed clear board. At this point, it's extremely awkward because my plan is to clear board, which is attacking Robin. They have no cards in hand except the Chopper, which has no counter, so it's obvious, but I'm like thinking what to do with my other characters. I'm even considering not attacking with Pacifista because I don't want to give them cards. But I think ultimately I decide that I should because... I need to end this game within the next turn or 2. I'm on the back foot and just getting them down from 3 to 4 life I mean, sorry, 3 to 2 life will ultimately be worth it. So I was gonna attach Dawn to the Pacifista, and then I realized like they have no cards in hand. There's no point. I attach one to Boa just to avoid getting jet pistoled, making her 7k. In case any of you aren't aware, you can attach Dawn to your characters on your turn to get them out of jet pistol range. Kind of in hindsight, not really relevant, because if they jet pistoled my Kuma, I was always just going to lose. But so here they are. Can't remember exactly what comes, but if you can see, they do have the jet pistol in their hand, which is very unfortunate. Because this bow is representing a card for me, and I am not going to be getting it, sadly. So I remember this turn, I'm discussing with them whether or not they should set up for the win next turn. So he's attacking my Pacifista for 6. I end up just letting it die. I would love to take the card from Boa, but then if they had a jet pistol for my last blocker, it would be pretty close to game over. I would have 0 life, and then next turn they could just put 15 on later and get through. So here I remember we were discussing whether or not to activate Sanji. Basically, it forces me to block, which gets rid of... Oh, actually, well, they're going to play the jet pistol first on Boa. Here it is. And then I discussed with him, oh, now like if you activate Sanji, it kind of forces me to use Kuma, because me going down to 0 and you having 2 blockers means I basically can't win on the next turn, and the turn after that you can just put 15 on or 10 on leader and attack. But ultimately I believe he decides not to activate it, but he takes like the midway or the more conservative route. Like instead, like into first he was going to not attack with Sanji, period, just leave him so he's not vulnerable, and I was suggesting activating him to get in a big attack, so instead he just uses his excess Dawn to get an attack for, I believe this is 7, which is of course a magic number. I take my last life, and it's regrettably a Mihawk, so I took the life because I was like, I need to try and go for the win here. An extra card might get me there. It being Mihawk was like one of the worst things I could possibly see. Something with no counter, something that would literally eat up my entire turn for only dealing with a single card is not ideal. But so anyway, I do have one line here. It's extremely risky, but we take it. So I swing 5 at Sanji, trying to get one of these choppers. And ultimately I do. He protects Sanji because he knows just having characters that can attack is the best way. I do it again at Dofi and he protects it. But then I play Mihawk, get rid of the Sanji anyway, so mission accomplished. I have 1 blocker to his 1 attacker. If I get my next turn I win, but he top decks just as good as he has been all game and finds a Nami. And we both agree that there's so many cards that can win it for him. Any character with rush, because I have so little cards in hand. So he knows I have 1 card in hand. 7k is exactly what you should attack for. And then he puts the rest of his Dawn on Sanji, gets an attack for 9, I believe, maybe 10. So that's game. GG's. And then you can see his life had 2 2k counters, so in hindsight, right not to go for the win that turn that I was thinking about it, but I'm definitely going to have to go over this video a lot and see what would happen if I didn't defend my guy so aggressively at the beginning, or maybe if I had shipped to the bottom with Spada. That's definitely one of Doflamingo's biggest talking points. There's so many variables that it's kind of just impossible for anyone to keep track of. Anyway, that's going to do it, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hope you liked the video. If you do, please leave a like, and if you'd like to subscribe, help me get my name out there a little bit. I'm going to try and provide as much content as I can, especially trying this out leading up to the Treasure Cup, and then try and record some of my experience there at the Treasure Cup. I will be at the Treasure Cup in Fort Worth, Texas at the end of February. But other than that, guys, peace out.